The road was supposed to take them home. But after the sun disappeared and the mile markers stopped making sense, they realized something was wrong. Not with the car, not with the night, but with who they were becoming as they kept driving. Some roads don't lead anywhere. They erase you instead.
Welcome to Horror Audiobook.
This is not a story about getting lost. This is a story about what happens when escape has a price, and the only currency the road accepts is your identity. Every mile they drive strips away memories, names, faces, and feelings, forcing a simple, brutal choice. Forget who you were or never leave at all. Because on this road, the night doesn't end. It waits, and it learns who you are before deciding what you're allowed to keep. Chapter 1. You should have turned back when the sky went black. The sun did not set the way it was supposed to. It stalled. At first, it looked like one of those evenings that lingered longer than expected. The sky stretched thin with bruised purples and dim oranges, the kind of dusk that made time feel gentle and forgiving. The road ahead shimmered with heat that should have been gone by now. Trees lined both sides, tall and indifferent, their branches knitting together overhead like clasped fingers. Ethan kept driving. Beside him, Mara rested her head against the window, watching the horizon with unfocused eyes. The dashboard clock read 7:42 p.m. It had read that for a while now. "Long sunset," she murmured, more to herself than to him. Ethan nodded, though his jaw tightened. "Yeah, it's just a long road." He said it casually, like a truth so ordinary it didn't need defending. The words settled between them, familiar and comforting. Mara repeated them silently, the way you might repeat a prayer you weren't sure you believed in anymore. The sky darkened, but only halfway. Night never arrived. Day never returned. The world remained suspended in that uneasy in-between, where shadows existed without fully committing to darkness. The headlights carved twin tunnels through the dimness, illuminating asphalt that looked endlessly fresh, as if it had never been driven on before. They passed a road sign. "Welcome to Crow's Pass, 17 miles. Ethan glanced at it, then back to the road. A minute later, they passed it again. Same rusted edges, same bullet hole near the sea, same distance. Mara sat up straighter. "Did we just—" "It's just a long road," Ethan said quickly, louder this time. He adjusted the radio, twisting the knob until static hissed, then snapped into a song already halfway through. An old classic, something they both knew. They listened in silence. The song ended. Another began. The same song. Same opening chord, same lyric. Mara reached for the dial and turned it. The static returned, surged, then resolved into a late-night talk show. A man laughed at his own joke. Then he laughed again. The exact same laugh, the same inflection, the same breath between chuckles. She turned the radio off. The silence pressed in immediately, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm that never broke. The car felt smaller now, as if the space inside it were being slowly compressed. "How long have we been driving?" Mara asked. Ethan checked the clock again. 7:42 p.m. "Couple hours," he said, though the word couple snagged in his throat. He couldn't remember stopping for gas, couldn't remember passing another car, couldn't remember the last intersection. The road did not curve. It did not rise or fall. It did not offer exits. It simply continued. Mara looked back through the rear window. The darkness behind them was different, thicker, heavier, like wet ink poured into the world. The headlights did not reach it. The road behind them did not reflect light the way it should have. "Ethan," she said quietly, "slow down." He did not. His foot stayed steady on the accelerator, as if easing up would cause something worse. His hands gripped the wheel too tightly, knuckles pale. "We'll find a turnoff," he said. We always do. Another sign appeared. Welcome to Crow's Pass, 17 miles. Mara laughed once, sharp and brittle. That's not funny. No, Ethan agreed, it's not. She reached for the door handle just to feel something solid and real. The metal was warm, too warm. The car hummed beneath them, a low, constant vibration that felt less like an engine and more like a living thing breathing steadily. What if we missed something? She asked. What if we already passed where we were supposed to turn? Ethan opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. The idea felt wrong in a way he couldn't articulate. Not scary, incorrect, as if the concept of back no longer applied. He checked the mirrors again. The darkness behind them did not move. Forward, he said slowly. We just need to keep going forward. Myra frowned. Why? He searched himself for the reason and found only a dull certainty, sitting heavy in his chest. Because that's the way out. They drove on. Minutes or hours passed. The sky did not change. The clock did not move. The trees did not thin or thicken. Everything repeated with slight maddening variations. A crack in the asphalt that looked like a branching vein. A dead animal by the roadside that appeared again later, unrotted and untouched. A mile marker that read 12, then 12 again, then 12 again. Mara pressed her forehead to the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, dim and distorted. For a moment she thought it blinked out of sync with her own eyes. She pulled away quickly. Say it again, she whispered. Ethan glanced at her. Say what? She swallowed, that it's just a long road. He hesitated, just long enough for fear to slip through the gap. Then he said it, it's just a long road. They both felt better after that. Not safe, but steadier, like children repeating a rhyme to keep monsters at bay. Another sign loomed ahead, emerging from the half-dark. This one was different. No welcome, no distance. Just an arrow pointing straight ahead, and beneath it, a single line of text carved deep into the metal, the letters uneven and crude, as if scratched by hand. Keep going. Ethan did not slow down. As the car passed the sign, the headlights flickered once, just once, and in that brief stutter of light, Mara thought she saw something standing at the edge of the road just beyond the trees, tall, still, watching. Then the light steadied. The road stretched on. And somewhere deep in the dark that wasn't night, something seemed to understand a simple, terrible truth before they did. They were not driving through the road anymore. The road was letting them continue. Chapter 2. The road only moves when you do. Ethan eased his foot off the accelerator. It wasn't a decision he announced or even fully acknowledged. It just happened, the instinctive response of a body that had been tense for too long. The engine's hum softened, dropping to a low idle, and the car began to slow. Nothing else did. The trees didn't sway. The air didn't shift. No insects resumed their nightly chorus, because there had never been one to begin with. The half-lit sky remained frozen in its unfinished dusk, a smear of color that refused to either die or renew itself. The car rolled to a stop. Silence thickened instantly. Not the gentle quiet of a rural night, but something dense and unnatural, like sound itself had been removed from the world. Ethan felt pressure in his ears, the faint ache that came with sudden altitude change. Mara exhaled slowly. Okay, she said, we're stopped. Ethan nodded. His hand stayed on the wheel. He waited for the road to feel different now that they weren't moving, for relief, for confirmation that stopping had been the right choice. The headlights illuminated the same stretch of asphalt, the same painted lines. No crossroads, no shoulders, no exits. Behind them, darkness pooled where the road should have been. I don't hear anything, Mara said. Ethan listened harder. Nothing answered. No wind through branches. No hum of distant traffic. Not even the ticking of the cooling engine which should have been there, should have filled the silence with something human and familiar. The dashboard clock still read 7:42 p.m. A minute passed, or something pretending to be one. Mara reached for her seatbelt and unlatched it. The click echoed too loudly in the car. She opened her door just a crack. Warm air pressed in, thick and stale, carrying a faint smell of dust and something metallic underneath. "Don't," Ethan said. She paused. "I just want to see." The door opened wider. The world outside the car did not react to her presence. The trees remained motionless, their leaves caught mid-shiver, as if time had been paused and forgotten there. The ground beyond the asphalt looked wrong, flat, featureless, like a painted backdrop. Mara stepped out. The silence deepened. Ethan felt it immediately, a crawling unease that started in his chest and spread outward. The road ahead seemed to stretch just a little farther now, its vanishing point receding as if offended by their stillness. "Mara," he said, "get back in." She turned toward him, frowning. "I just need a minute." Her voice sounded distant, already muffled by the space between them. She took one more step away from the car, her foot touching the painted line at the road's edge. The headlights flickered. Not off, never off, but dimmed, as if reconsidering their purpose. The pressure in Ethan's ears spiked. His heart began to race. "Stillness is not safety," he said, the words leaving his mouth before he realized he was saying them. Myra froze. "What?" He swallowed. "I don't know, just get back in, please." For a moment, she didn't move. The world seemed to hold its breath with her, waiting to see what she would choose. Then she took a step backward. The moment she did, the headlights brightened. The pressure eased. The air shifted slightly, carrying the faintest suggestion of movement. Mara hurried back into the car and slammed the door shut. The silence lingered, but it no longer felt absolute. They sat there, breathing hard, listening for something that never came. Ethan turned the key. The engine responded instantly, too eagerly, as if it had been waiting for permission. As the car began to roll forward, the world around them resumed its illusion of normalcy. The trees seemed closer now. The road felt less endless. Mara wrapped her arms around herself. "Did you feel that?" "Yes." "Like it didn't want us to stop." Ethan nodded, like it was watching to see if we would. They drove in silence for a while, both of them afraid to be the one who broke it. Eventually, Mara said, "We can't just keep going forever." Ethan didn't answer. He tried to picture what forever looked like, but the concept slipped away from him, vague and shapeless. The road had a way of doing that, stretching thoughts thin until they lost their edges. "Maybe we take turns resting," she continued. "Just close our eyes for a minute, not stop, just slow down." Ethan hesitated. Then, against his better judgment, he eased off the accelerator again. The engine's hum dipped. The headlights flickered. Not as dramatically this time, just enough to notice. Myra's breathing quickened. "Okay, no, don't." He pressed the gas again. The car surged forward, and with it came a strange sensation, relief tinged with something darker, approval. A mile marker slid past on the right. 11. Ethan stared at it. "Wasn't it 12? Myra nodded slowly. "It was." They drove on. The road began to change in subtle ways. The asphalt smoothed beneath the tires, the ride growing quieter, more effortless. The engine seemed to work less, as if the road itself were helping them along. "Does it feel easier to you?" Mara asked. "Yes." They didn't like that. Another marker appeared. 10. Then another. 9. Each one passed a little faster than the last. Ethan's foot grew heavy on the pedal, though he didn't remember pressing it harder. The car wanted to move. The road encouraged it. Mara noticed it too. "It's like, when we keep going, things get better." The thought felt dangerous the moment it was spoken. "That's how it tricks you," Ethan said. But even as he said it, a part of him wondered if trick was the right word. The road wasn't lying. It wasn't hiding its rules. Move and be rewarded. Stop and suffer. Stillness is not safety, Mara whispered, the phrase tasting wrong and right at the same time. They fell quiet again, the rhythm of passing markers lulling them into something dangerously close to comfort. When Ethan blinked, just for a second longer than usual, the road ahead seemed to stretch, its surface rippling like disturbed water. He opened his eyes wide and focused. The ripple vanished, but the sense of being guided, of being gently herded forward, did not. As another mile slipped away beneath their tires, a realization crept in, slow and cold. The road wasn't forcing them to continue. It was teaching them why they wouldn't dare stop. And far ahead in the dim space where night refused to end, something waited patiently, certain that when the time came, they would choose motion over rest, every single time. Chapter 3: The First Memory Goes Missing. The first thing Mara lost was so small, it almost went unnoticed. They were driving past another stretch of identical trees, same lean trunks, same crooked shadows, when she laughed softly at something Ethan said. It was a reflex more than a reaction, the kind of laugh that followed familiarity rather than humor. "Do you remember?" she began, then paused. Her smile faltered. "What did we used to call that diner outside Red Hollow, the one with the flickering sign?" Ethan glanced at her. "You mean?" He stopped. The name hovered just out of reach, like a word on the tip of his tongue. He could picture the place clearly, cracked vinyl booths, the smell of burnt coffee, the waitress with the tired eyes who always called them hun. He remembered going there. He remembered laughing about the name. But the name itself was gone. Mara frowned. "It had a nickname, we made it up." "Yeah," Ethan said slowly, "we did." They waited, both of them searching their own minds, circling the empty space where the memory should have been. Nothing came. Mara laughed again, but this time it was sharp, brittle. "That's weird." "It's just stress," Ethan said, though his voice lacked conviction. "We've been driving a long time." She nodded, accepting the explanation because she wanted to, because the alternative felt too heavy to consider. They drove on. The road slid beneath them, smooth and obliging. Another mile marker passed. 8. Mara's head ached faintly, a dull pressure behind her eyes. She rubbed her temples, then stopped. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "I was just thinking," she said. "My dad used to call me something when I was little. Not my name, something else. It was stupid. I hated it." She tried to laugh it off, but her hands clenched in her lap. "I can't remember what it was." Ethan's stomach tightened. "You never liked it. You complained about it all the time." "I know," she said. "I remember that I hated it. I remember arguing with him about it. I just don't remember the word." The absence felt wrong in a way that made her skin prickle. Memories weren't supposed to come apart like that. You forgot things with their context, not without it. "What did we lose this mile?" she whispered. Ethan didn't answer right away. He waited for another sign, another marker, something to ground the thought. When nothing appeared immediately, he forced himself to speak. "Probably nothing," he said. "You're tired." She nodded, but the doubt lingered. They tried to distract themselves, talked about work, about friends, about places they'd been. Every conversation felt like stepping onto thin ice, careful not to put too much weight on any single memory. Then Ethan said, "Remember that joke you always tell, about the—" He stopped. Mara looked at him. He knew the joke. He knew the rhythm of it, the way she always paused before the punchline, the sound of her laugh afterward. He could feel the shape of the humor without being able to grasp it. "I don't," he admitted quietly. "I remember that you tell it, I just don't remember what it is." The car felt colder suddenly. Myra hugged herself. Okay, she said. Okay, that's not normal. No, Ethan agreed. Another mile marker appeared. 7. The road hummed softly beneath them, the sound almost soothing. Mara hated that part the most. It's picking things, she said. Not big things, not yet. Ethan nodded. It's testing. Testing what? How much we'll notice. They fell into a rhythm after that. Each time they passed a marker, they checked in with each other, comparing memories like inventory. What did we lose this mile? Became a question they asked automatically, the words worn smooth by repetition. Sometimes the answer was nothing. Sometimes it was something small enough to dismiss. A neighbor's name, the color of a childhood bedroom, the lyrics to a song they swore they'd known by heart. Once, Myra forgot the smell of her mother's perfume. She remembered her mother, remembered the bottle on the dresser, remembered hugging her goodbye. But the scent itself, the thing that made those memories feel real, was gone. She cried quietly, turning toward the window so Ethan wouldn't see. The road did not react. The next mile marker came faster. 6. Ethan noticed something else then, something that chilled him more than the missing memories. The memories they lost were never shared at the same time. If Mara forgot something, he still remembered it, at least partially. If he lost a detail, she could usually fill in the gap. The road wasn't erasing them together. It was separating them. Mara, he said slowly, it's not random. She wiped her eyes. I know. What if it's trying to make sure only one of us remembers things? Why? The answer formed unbidden in his mind, cold and sharp. So we don't notice when one of us is gone. They didn't say anything after that. The sky remained unchanged. The clock remained stuck. The world felt thinner now, like it might tear if they pushed too hard against it. When the next marker appeared, 5. Myra closed her eyes. What did we lose this mile? Ethan asked softly. She thought for a moment, then her brow furrowed. I don't know, she said. I feel like I should. The panic came then, sudden and overwhelming. If you couldn't remember what you'd lost, how would you know when it mattered? Ethan reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. We'll keep track, he said. We'll write it down if we have to. He glanced at the glove compartment, thinking of pens, paper, and froze. For a split second, he couldn't remember what a pen was. The concept slipped away just barely, like a dream fatting upon waking. He grasped it again almost immediately, breath hitching as it returned. Mara noticed his reaction. What? She asked. Nothing, he said too quickly. But the fear in his voice lingered. As they drove on, another truth settled in, heavy and unavoidable. The road wasn't just taking memories. It was teaching them how to live without them. And somewhere ahead, in the miles they hadn't yet reached, waited the moment when asking what did we lose this mile would no longer make sense, because they wouldn't remember why the question mattered at all. Chapter 4. The mile markers are counting backwards. The first time Ethan said it out loud, Mara told him he was wrong. That's not how roads work, she said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. They don't count down unless there's something at the end. Ethan didn't respond immediately. His gaze was fixed on the mile marker sliding past the passenger side window. 4. The white paint was chipped, the metal bent inward like it had been struck and left that way on purpose. No town name, no arrow, just the number. It was 5 a minute ago, he said. Mara shook her head. No, it was. Yes, he said quietly, it was. They drove on in silence, the hum of the tires filling the space between them. The road felt narrower now, the trees closer, their branches arching overhead like a tunnel that hadn't quite closed yet. Another marker appeared. 3. Myra's breath caught. She leaned forward, pressing her face close to the glass as if proximity might change what she was seeing. It didn't. The number remained, stark and undeniable. "Okay," she said slowly. "Okay, that's new." Ethan nodded. "It's not random." She looked at him. "How do you know?" "Because nothing else here is." They passed 2 less than a mile later. The road seemed eager now, the asphalt smooth and dark, reflecting the headlights like wet skin. The car moved with unsettling ease, barely needing fuel. The gas gauge hadn't budged in what felt like hours. Mara hugged herself. "So what happens at 0? Ethan didn't answer. He was thinking about the memories they'd lost. The diner nickname, the childhood name, the joke that no longer existed. Each one had vanished after a marker passed. "What did we lose this mile?" he asked. Mara closed her eyes and searched herself carefully. "My neighbor growing up," she said after a moment. "The one with the dog. I remember the dog. I remember being scared of it. I don't remember his face." Ethan nodded grimly. "I lost the name of my high school." That startled her, the whole thing. "I know I went there," he said. "I know the building. I know the locker I used. I just don't know what it was called." They exchanged a look heavy with understanding. The road wasn't measuring distance. It was measuring them. Another marker appeared. 1. The number loomed larger than the others, the paint fresher, the metal unscarred, as if it had been waiting. Mara's heart pounded. "Ethan, I don't like this." "I know. What happens when it reaches 0? The question hung in the air, unanswered. They drove on. The next marker came quickly. It didn't say 0. It said nothing at all. A blank slab of metal stood at the roadside, smooth and featureless, reflecting their headlights without offering any information back. As they passed it, Mara gasped. She pressed a hand to her mouth. "I forgot my sister's laugh." Ethan felt something twist painfully in his chest. "What?" "I remember her," Mara said quickly, panic rising. "I remember her face, her voice, the things she says. I just don't remember the way she laughs, the sound of it, the way it made me feel." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "That's not fair." Ethan reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. The road did not slow. Another blank marker slid past. Then another. The space between them shortened, appearing more frequently, as if the road were accelerating its count. Mara wiped her face with the back of her hand. "It's not stopping at 0. Ethan swallowed. "No. It's counting something else now." They watched the next marker approach. This one wasn't blank. It bore a symbol instead of a number, an uneven vertical line, deeply scratched into the metal. Ethan felt a cold certainty settle over him. "That's 1, he said, "just not the kind we're used to." Mara shook her head. "That doesn't make sense." "Neither does losing pieces of yourself every mile," he replied. They drove on. With each marker, something else slipped away. Subtle things at first, a favorite song's melody, the texture of a childhood blanket, the sound of rain on a roof. The memories didn't vanish all at once. They thinned like fog lifting, leaving behind impressions without substance. Mara began to hesitate before answering when Ethan asked the question now. "What did we lose this mile?" Sometimes she had to think, sometimes she couldn't be sure. The worst part was how quickly the panic faded after each loss. The road seemed to dull the pain, smoothing over the raw edges of grief until it felt manageable, acceptable. "That's how it gets you," Ethan said quietly, more to himself than to her. "It makes it hurt less to lose things." Another symbol-marked post slid past. Mara blinked. "Did you ever want kids?" Ethan frowned. "What?" She stared at him, confused. "I don't know why I asked that." He opened his mouth to answer, and realized he didn't know. The thought should have come with emotion, with opinions, with arguments they'd had or plans they'd made. Instead, there was only a blank space. "I don't remember," he said. Mara's eyes widened. "That's not something you forget." They drove on in silence, the weight of that truth pressing down on them. The markers continued, each one a quiet promise that something else would be taken, not all at once, not cruelly. Methodically, as the road stretched on and the sky refused to change, a final realization settled in, chilling and inescapable. The road wasn't endless. It was finite. And when it reached the end of what it was counting, there would be nothing left to measure, except whatever remained in the driver's seat, still moving forward, no longer sure what it had lost or why it should ever stop. Chapter 5. The radio knows your voice. The radio turned itself on. Not all at once, no sharp click, no burst of sound, but slowly, like a throat clearing before speech. Static seeped into the car in thin, wavering strands, low enough at first that Ethan wondered if he was imagining it. He reached for the dial. Before his fingers touched it, the static faded. A voice replaced it. "I don't like this road." Mara stiffened. The voice was hers. Not exactly. There was something flattened about it, like an imitation smoothed of all its rough edges, but the cadence was unmistakable. The hesitation before road, the breath she always took before saying something she didn't want to admit out loud. Ethan's hand froze inches from the radio. The voice continued. "It doesn't feel right. We should have turned back when the sky went black." Mara's mouth went dry. "I said that." Ethan nodded slowly. "You did." The radio crackled, then another voice joined in. His. Calm, controlled, too controlled. "It's just a long road," the radio, Ethan said. "You're overthinking it." Mara stared at him. "You don't sound like that." "I know," he said hoarsely. The radio replayed the exchange again, word for word, tone for tone. When it ended, there was a brief pause. Then it started over, slightly faster, like a rehearsal tightening toward perfection. Mara reached out and shut the radio off. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. "That wasn't live," she said. "It couldn't have been." Ethan nodded, though his pulse thundered in his ears. "It was a recording." "But we never recorded that." They drove on, the road humming beneath them, the unfinished night pressing close to the windows. Ethan kept glancing at the radio, half expecting it to turn itself back on. It didn't. For a while. Mara hugged herself. How did it know? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He was thinking about the markers, the trades, the way the road seemed to anticipate them. "If the road remembers you," he said slowly, "it doesn't need you to remember yourself." The radio clicked on again. This time it skipped the static entirely. "We'll be fine," Ethan's voice said. "We always are." Mara flinched. "That's not something you say." Ethan frowned. "I don't think it's something I ever said." The radio paused. Then Mara's voice replied, soft and certain. "You agreed to this." The words landed like a physical blow. "What?" she whispered. The radio repeated it, both voices now layered together, synchronized unnervingly well. "You agreed to this." Mara shook her head. "Agreed to what?" Ethan's chest tightened. "I don't remember agreeing to anything." The radio crackled, then played a different clip. This one was quieter, intimate, close. Mara's voice again, but tired, strained. "Just don't let me forget you, promise." Ethan's voice followed, low and steady. "I promise." Mara turned to him slowly. "Did I say that?" He searched his memory and found nothing. No image, no moment, just the echo of the words. "I don't know," he admitted. The radio cut out abruptly, plunging the car back into silence. They drove in that silence for a long time, both of them afraid to speak, afraid of what might be recorded next. When the next marker passed, Ethan felt the familiar dulling sensation, the gentle easing of something sharp inside him. "What did we lose this mile?" Mara asked quietly. He hesitated. "I think," he said slowly, "I lost the sound of my own voice." She stared at him. "What does that mean?" "When I talk," he said, "it doesn't feel like it's coming from me anymore. It feels practiced." As if summoned by the thought, the radio clicked on again. Ethan's voice filled the car, smoother now, more confident. "You're safe," it said. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." Mara covered her ears. "Make it stop." Ethan reached for the radio and twisted the knob hard, past the point where it should have gone silent. It didn't. Instead, the voice continued, undisturbed by his interference. "You agreed to this," it said again. "You both did." Mara's breath came fast and shallow. "What if we did?" Ethan looked at her sharply. "What?" "What if," she continued, voice trembling, "we chose this? What if this road is something we asked for?" The idea felt wrong, but not impossible. The radio seemed to sense her doubt. It changed tactics. Now it played laughter. Their laughter. Snippets of shared moments, inside jokes, quiet nights, arguments softened by familiarity. The sound of a life lived together, reduced to fragments and played back without context. Mara began to cry. "That's not fair," she said. "Those are ours." The radio responded immediately, as if offended. "If the road remembers you," Ethan's recorded voice said, "it doesn't need you." The implication settled over them like frost. The road didn't need their memories. It had copies. Ethan slammed the radio off again, yanking the fuse from the dashboard with shaking fingers. The screen went dark. The speakers fell silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the car's speakers, dead, disconnected, whispered softly. "You agreed to this." Mara screamed. Ethan pressed the accelerator harder, the car surging forward as if eager to comply. The road smoothed beneath them, approving of the motion, of the choice to flee rather than resist. The whisper faded. The silence returned. Mara sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Neither of them spoke for a long time. When the next marker passed, Mara wiped her eyes and asked, voice small, "What did we lose this mile?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He was listening. Not to the radio. To himself. And for the first time since the road began, he wasn't entirely sure the voice in his head was his anymore. As the car sped onward into the unending night, one final truth settled in, cold and absolute. The road didn't need them to speak. It already knew exactly what they would say. Chapter 6. You can trade pain to keep love. The road changed its tone without changing its shape. It was still straight, still narrow, still framed by the same motionless trees and the same unfinished night, but something in the air softened, as if the road had decided to stop punishing them for a while. Mara noticed it first. "It doesn't hurt as much," she said. Ethan glanced at her. "What does?" She searched for the answer and found it waiting ready, losing things. They passed another marker, no number, only that scratched vertical line, now doubled, then tripled as the posts went by. Ethan braced himself for the familiar spike of panic, the sharp intake of breath that usually followed. It didn't come. "What did we lose this mile?" he asked. Mara tilted her head, listening inward. Her brow furrowed, then relaxed. "I don't know," she said. "Something heavy." The word heavy lingered between them. Ethan felt it too, not the loss itself, but the absence of its weight. Like waking up after a nightmare and knowing you'd been terrified without remembering why. "That's not better," he said quietly. Mara didn't answer. The road hummed beneath them, a low, steady sound that felt almost comforting now. The headlights seemed brighter. The car rode smoother. Even the air smelled different, less metallic, more neutral like dust after rain. Another marker passed. Mara exhaled. I feel lighter. Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. That's how it gets you. But even as he said it, a treacherous part of him wondered if getting you was the right phrase. The road wasn't hiding its rules anymore. It was making them clear. It hurts less when it takes something you already hate. The thought slid into his mind fully formed, so smooth it felt like his own. Mara smiled faintly. It was the first real smile she'd worn in miles. I think I know what it took. Ethan glanced at her. What? The fight with my mother, she said. The last one. The one where I said things I never got to take back. He remembered that fight. Remembered the way Mara's voice had shaken when she talked about it. Remembered how the memory still made her flinch. Do you still remember it? He asked. She thought for a moment. I remember that it happened. I remember being angry. I just don't feel it. Her smile faded, replaced by something uncertain. Is that bad? Before Ethan could answer, another marker passed. This time he felt it. A sudden loosening in his chest. A knot he hadn't realized he'd been carrying simply gone. He blinked hard. It took something from me too. Mara waited. The accident, he said slowly. When I was 16, the one with the truck. Her eyes widened. You never talk about that. I know, he said. I hated remembering it. I hated the sound, the smell. He paused, searching himself. I remember that it happened, he continued. I remember the facts, but the fear of the guilt. He shook his head. It's like remembering a story someone else told me. Mara reached for his hand. Does that scare you? Ethan thought about it. The honest answer surprised him. No, he said, it doesn't. That was the problem. They drove on, the road accepting their movement eagerly. The markers came faster now, each one a quiet offer. Take something painful, keep something precious. Mara spoke again, her voice cautious. If it can take bad things, maybe that's what it wants us to do. Ethan glanced at her. You mean feed it what hurts us? She nodded. What if that's the trade? He didn't like how reasonable it sounded. They passed another marker. This time Mara gasped, not in pain, but in relief so sudden it made her laugh. It took my first breakup, she said, the one that wrecked me in college. She pressed a hand to her chest as if checking herself. I remember the guy. I remember crying. I just don't feel stupid anymore. Ethan watched her carefully. The laugh hadn't reached her eyes, but the tension in her shoulders had eased. It hurts less when it takes something you already hate, she said, repeating the phrase softly, testing it. The road seemed to respond. The car surged forward slightly, the engine purring with approval. Ethan's stomach twisted. Be careful, he said. It's teaching us what to give it. Another marker slid past. Ethan felt a flicker of dizziness. A memory rose unbidden, his father shouting, red-faced, the smell of beer thick in the air. Then it dulled. The image lost its edges, its heat. Ethan exhaled, long and slow. I don't feel angry about him anymore. Mara looked at him sharply. Ethan, that anger was part of you. He nodded, I know. But even as he said it, the loss felt acceptable. That terrified him more than the road ever had. They drove in silence after that, each of them aware of the quiet bargains being struck mile by mile. The road didn't force them. It offered. And the offers were good. The markers continued, their symbols growing more complex, lines intersecting, branching, forming shapes that felt uncomfortably deliberate. What if, Mara said finally, what if we can give it everything bad and keep the rest? Ethan didn't answer right away. He was thinking about the way her smile had looked earlier, about how close they felt now, the tension between them eased by shared relief. Closer than they'd been in years. I don't think it works that way, he said at last. I think it starts with the things we hate, so we won't notice when it moves on. To what? He swallowed. To the things we need. Another marker passed. This one hit differently. Mara's hand tightened around his. I don't remember the night we met, she said suddenly. Ethan's breath caught. What? I remember that we met, she said quickly. I remember loving you, I just don't remember how it started. The relief drained from the car, replaced by something cold and sharp. That's not something you hate, Ethan said. Mara shook her head, fear finally breaking through. No, that's not something I ever wanted to lose. The road hummed unbothered. As they drove on, the truth settled in, heavy and unavoidable. The road didn't care what they gave it. It only cared that the trade continued. And soon the pain they could afford to lose would be gone, leaving only the things that defined them, the things they loved most, waiting their turn to be offered up or taken anyway. Chapter 7. The passenger seat is lighter than before. Ethan noticed the change before he could explain it. It wasn't something obvious, no sudden disappearance, no dramatic shift. Mara was still there in the passenger seat, still breathing, still blinking, but the space she occupied felt thinner, as if some invisible weight had been lifted from the car. The seatbelt lay against her shoulder with less tension now. The cushion beneath her didn't creak when she shifted. Ethan told himself he was imagining it. Mara, he said. She turned her head slowly, too slowly. The movement lagged like a video buffering before it caught up. Yes, she replied. Her voice was flat, not tired, not scared, just level, stripped of inflection. You okay? He asked. She considered the question carefully, as if it were written in a language she'd only recently learned. I think so. The road rolled on, smooth and accommodating. The night remained unfinished, suspended like a held breath. Another marker slid past, its symbol more intricate now, lines crossing and looping like a careful diagram. Ethan felt the familiar easing inside his chest. What did we lose this mile? He asked. Mara didn't answer right away. He glanced at her. She was staring straight ahead, eyes unfocused, reflecting the headlights without reacting to them. Mara. Oh, she said softly, as if startled by the sound of her own name. I'm sorry, what did you say? The delay sent a chill through him. I asked what we lost. She thought again, longer this time. Then she shrugged, a small, incomplete motion. I don't know. That answer should have scared her. It didn't. They drove in silence for a while. Ethan waited for her to speak. She usually did, filling the quiet with questions, observations, nervous humor. She didn't. The road hummed beneath them, approving. Another marker passed. Ethan's heart began to race. Mara, he said gently, do you remember where we were going before this? She frowned, the expression faint, like a shadow of a thought. We were driving. Yes, he said, but to where? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I don't think that matters, she said at last. The words landed wrong. That matters, Ethan said, more sharply than he intended. That's how we know who we are. She turned to him, studying his face with mild curiosity. Is it? The question hollowed him out. Another mile passed. Ethan felt the car respond eagerly, gliding forward with unnatural ease. The gas gauge still hadn't moved. The engine purred like it was being carried rather than driven. Mara, he said again, look at me. She did, but her eyes slid off him, unable to settle, like she couldn't quite focus on his features. You're still here, right? He asked, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. She smiled faintly, not reassuring, not confused, just polite. I think so. That wasn't an answer. Ethan swallowed hard. Say my name. She hesitated, just for a beat too long. Ethan, she said. The sound of it was wrong, careful, rehearsed, like she'd read it somewhere instead of learned it through years of saying it. Another marker passed. Ethan felt something leave him then, not a memory, but a certainty. The certainty that she would always respond the way he expected her to. The road took that from him easily. They drove on. Time stretched, collapsed, reformed. Ethan wasn't sure how many markers they passed anymore. He stopped counting when the symbols grew too complex to remember. Myra didn't comment on them at all. At one point, Ethan laughed nervously. "Remember when you used to hate long drives?" She glanced at him. "Did I?" "Yes," he said quickly. "You always complained about your legs going numb. You made me stop every hour." She nodded, accepting the information. "That sounds like me." But there was no recognition behind the words. The passenger seat creaked softly as she shifted her weight. The sound startled Ethan. It was quieter than it should have been. He reached over and touched her arm. It felt warm, solid. That almost made it worse. "You're still here, right?" he asked again, his voice barely more than a whisper. She looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at him. "I'm here," she said. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because you don't ask questions anymore," he thought. "Because you don't look scared. Because the road is taking you in pieces too small for you to notice." Another marker slid past. Mara's head tilted slightly. "Ethan, do you ever feel like you're doing all the thinking for both of us?" His throat tightened. "Yes." She nodded as if that confirmed something. "That's okay, I don't mind." The casual surrender in her tone terrified him. "No," he said, "you should mind." She shrugged again. "It's quieter this way." The road hummed louder, almost pleased. Ethan pressed the accelerator harder, though he didn't know why. The car surged forward, the trees blurring slightly at their edges. "Mara," he said urgently, "do you love me?" She answered immediately, too immediately. "Yes." There was no warmth in it, no hesitation, just a correct response. "Why?" he asked. She paused. "I don't know," she said, "but I think I'm supposed to." Something broke in him then. The next marker passed unnoticed. Ethan's vision blurred. "You're still here, right?" he asked again, the question breaking apart under its own weight. Mara reached over and placed her hand on his. Her grip was light, almost insubstantial. "I'm here," she said gently. "You don't have to worry so much." But Ethan was already terrified. Because as the road carried them onward, smooth and unresisting, he realized the truth he'd been avoiding. The road wasn't taking Mara away. It was leaving her behind. Hollowed out, compliant, easy to carry. And if the passenger seat could grow lighter without ever becoming empty, then soon, very soon, Ethan would have to face the question he was no longer sure he wanted answered. When the road was finished with her, would it still need him at all? Chapter 8. The road only lets one of you leave. The road narrowed without warning. Not dramatically, no collapsing asphalt, no sudden drop, but subtly, like a corridor tightening around them. The trees leaned closer now, their branches overlapping overhead until the sky was reduced to a thin, bruised ribbon of half-light. Ethan felt it immediately. Not fear. Pressure. As if the road were drawing a conclusion it had been working toward all along. Mara sat quietly beside him, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't spoken in a long time. Her breathing was shallow but steady, her gaze fixed forward with patient disinterest. Another marker slid past. This one wasn't a symbol. It was a word. Balance. Ethan's heart thudded painfully. "Mara," he said, "did you see that?" "Yes," she replied without turning her head. "You didn't react." "I don't think I need to." That answer made his skin crawl. They drove on. The road curved gently for the first time since this began, bending inward like a slow, deliberate gesture. The hum beneath the tires deepened, vibrating through Ethan's bones. "Mara," he said again, "listen to me, something's coming." She nodded, "Yes." "You don't sound scared." "I'm not." Another marker appeared. "Something must remain." The words were etched deep into the metal, the grooves darkened as if stained by time or use. Ethan swallowed. "That's not a direction." "No," Mara said calmly, "it's a rule." He glanced at her sharply. "How do you know that?" She considered the question. "It feels familiar." That terrified him more than if she'd been panicking. They passed another marker. This one was blank, but the road reacted anyway. The headlights brightened. The car surged forward slightly, eager, almost relieved. Ethan's thoughts raced. This place, this road, it's not trying to kill us. Myra nodded again. "No. It's trying to finish something." "Yes." He tightened his grip on the wheel. "Finish what?" She turned to him then, really looked at him, and for a brief, terrible moment, something like understanding flickered behind her eyes. "A transfer," she said. The word echoed in the car. Another marker slid past. "One leaves." Ethan's breath hitched. "No." Mara didn't react. Another marker. "One stays." The road straightened abruptly after that, as if the choice had been clarified, and all that remained was execution. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears. "That's not how this works. We came here together." Mara tilted her head. "Did we?" He glanced at her, desperate. "Of course we did." She frowned faintly, as if trying to recall something distant. "I remember being with you," she said. "I don't remember arriving." The implication hit him like ice water. "You're saying you're already staying?" She didn't answer. The road hummed, approving. Ethan shook his head. "No, no, that's not fair." The word fair felt childish the moment it left his mouth. The road didn't care about fairness. It cared about equilibrium. Another marker appeared, closer now. "Identity cannot be duplicated." Ethan laughed weakly. "That's what this is about, copies, balance sheets." Mara's voice was soft. "You notice the radio, the memories, the way it keeps records." He swallowed. "Yes." "It doesn't lose anything," she continued. "It reallocates." The word felt clinical, final. "You're talking like it makes sense," he said. "It does," she replied gently. "If two people enter carrying overlapping lives, one of those lives has to be consolidated." Ethan's vision blurred. "That's not how people work." "No," she agreed. "That's how systems work." Another marker passed. "Something must remain." Ethan slammed his foot on the brake. The car screamed in protest as it slowed, but didn't stop. The road resisted, dragging them forward inch by inch, like a current pulling against a swimmer. Mara didn't flinch. "Stillness is not safety," she said calmly. The phrase sounded wrong coming from her mouth, too smooth, too certain. Ethan released the brake, breathing hard. "I won't leave you," he said. "I don't care what it wants." Mara looked at him with something like pity. "It's not about want." Another marker. This one was different. It bore no words, only a shallow indentation shaped like a human silhouette. "Passenger side." Ethan's throat closed. "No." The road slowed then, just a little. For the first time since the beginning, it hesitated. Mara felt it too. She straightened slightly, as if responding to a cue only she could hear. "I think," she said, "this is where the road decides." Ethan shook his head violently. "We decide, we always decide." She reached for his hand. Her touch was barely there. "Ethan," she said, and for the first time in what felt like forever his name carried weight again. "You're still full." The words hit him harder than any accusation. "You still hurt," she continued. You still remember, you still resist. He stared at her horrified. And you do. She smiled faintly. No. The next marker rose ahead of them, taller than the others, its surface polished smooth. Balance achieved through subtraction. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. You're talking like you've already accepted this. Mara's gaze drifted forward. I think I accepted it miles ago. The road began to glow faintly now, the asphalt reflecting light that didn't exist anywhere else. The air grew warmer, thicker. You're still here, right? Ethan whispered, the familiar plea breaking him all over again. Mara squeezed his hand gently. I'm here enough. The road surged forward. And in that moment, Ethan understood the terrible, elegant truth at the heart of it all. The road didn't trap people. It processed them. It didn't demand suffering. It demanded resolution. Two incomplete selves went in. One coherent identity came out. And as the glowing stretch ahead opened wider, preparing for whatever came next, Ethan realized the cruelest part of the road's design wasn't that it forced a choice. It was that it made the choice feel inevitable. Because something did have to remain. And the road was very close to deciding what that something would be. Chapter 9. You decide what you're willing to forget. The road slowed. Not enough to feel like mercy, just enough to feel intentional. Ethan felt it in his bones, the way you feel a room go quiet when someone important is about to speak. The glow ahead softened, spreading across the asphalt like a held breath. The trees leaned back slightly, granting space. Time itself seemed to thin, stretching wide enough for a decision to fit inside it. Mara sat beside him, hands folded, posture perfect. She looked prepared, finished. The road hummed patient. A marker rose ahead, taller than the others. No symbols, no rules carved into it. Just a smooth surface that reflected Ethan back at himself. The car rolled to a gentle stop, its first true stop since the night went black. Silence settled, deep and deliberate. Mara turned to him. This is where you choose. His throat tightened. You're talking like I still have one. She nodded. You do, that's why it waited. The words felt like a verdict. Ethan looked at the road ahead. It no longer stretched endlessly. It narrowed into a corridor of light, warm and inviting in a way that made his skin crawl. Beyond it, nothing he could see, nothing the road was willing to show yet. What does it want? He asked. Mara's voice was gentle. It wants what you're willing to give. A pressure built behind his eyes, familiar now. The urge to let go, to make it easier. What happens if I refuse? He asked. The road answered before Mara could. The hum deepened, the light dimmed slightly. Stillness is not safety. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, he knew. This is about what I keep, he said, not what it takes. Mara smiled faintly. Say it before the road does. The phrase echoed, settling into him like a command he'd always known. Say it before the road does. He swallowed hard. If I don't choose, it will. Yes. And if I choose wrong? She tilted her head. There isn't a wrong, there's only what remains. The road pulsed once, as if in agreement. Ethan's hands trembled on the wheel. He took a breath and began the only way he could, out loud, so the road could hear him. I'll give you the accident, he said. The words tasted bitter and relieving all at once. The smell of gasoline, the scream of twisting metal, he felt them loosen, then slide away. The road hummed, pleased. I'll give you my father's anger, he continued, faster now. The shouting, the nights I waited for him to come home. Another pulse, another easing. Mara watched silently, her expression unreadable. Ethan's chest felt lighter, emptier. Say it before the road does. I'll give you my fear of being alone, he said. The way it keeps me awake, the way it makes me stay when I shouldn't. The road glowed brighter. The corridor ahead widened. Ethan laughed softly, breathless. See, I can do this. Mara didn't smile back. Careful, she said. You're reaching the edges now. He frowned. Edges of what? The parts that hurt, she replied. You're almost through them. The realization struck him cold. If the pain was nearly gone, what came next? Say it before the road does. Ethan hesitated. I'll give you my first apartment, he said uncertainly. The loneliness there. The nights I ate standing up because the place felt too quiet. The road accepted it, but less eagerly. The hum softened. Mara's gaze sharpened. You feel it, don't you? Yes, he whispered. It's harder now. Because you're closer to what defines you, she said, not what wounded you. The light ahead flickered. Ethan's heart began to pound. Say it before the road does. He shook his head. I won't give you her. Mara didn't react. I won't give you the way she laughs, he said, voice breaking. Or the night we met, or the way she used to squeeze my hand when she was nervous. The road's hum deepened, displeased. The corridor narrowed slightly. Mara spoke softly. You can keep love, but it won't be whole. What does that mean? He demanded. It means you can remember that you loved me, she said. Or why not both? Ethan felt the world tilt. Say it before the road does. He squeezed his eyes shut, memories flashing, too many, too vivid. Her laugh, her anger, her warmth, her absence sitting right beside him. What if I choose myself? He asked hoarsely. All of it, even the pain. The road went quiet. For the first time, it didn't answer immediately. Mara's voice was barely a whisper. Then I stay. The truth landed with a terrible calm. Something must remain. Ethan opened his eyes and looked at her, really looked, at the hollowness, the calm, the way she was already more road than person. Say it before the road does. His breath shook. I'll give you the future we planned. The words ripped out of him. The road surged. The corridor flared wide, brilliant and blinding. Mara gasped softly, not in pain but in release. Ethan collapsed forward, gripping the wheel as something precious tore free, the image of a shared tomorrow gone. Children, old age, the quiet certainty of us ahead, unraveled and consumed. The road drank it in. When the light settled, the pressure lifted. Mara looked at him, eyes clearer now, fuller. You chose, she said. Ethan laughed weakly. I did. What did you keep? She asked. He searched himself. I kept who I am, he said slowly, even when it hurts. The road hummed, satisfied. The corridor ahead opened completely. The car began to roll forward again, gentle and unopposed. As they moved, one last phrase echoed through Ethan's mind. No longer a command, but a warning he understood too late. Say it before the road does. Because the road was done waiting. And whatever came next, it would belong only to the one who still remembered why escape had ever mattered at all. Chapter 10. The night ends for someone. The first hint of dawn was so subtle Ethan almost missed it. A pale thinning of the darkness, a softening at the edge of the sky, as if the night were finally loosening its grip, not retreating exactly, but stepping aside for something else to take its place. The road responded immediately. The hum beneath the tires faded, replaced by a sound Ethan hadn't heard in what felt like forever. Wind. Real wind. It brushed past the car in uneven currents, carrying the dry, ordinary smell of earth and leaves. The trees began to sway, their branches creaking softly as they moved again, no longer frozen in patient attention. The road was letting go. Ethan's heart pounded as the horizon brightened ahead. Color returned slowly, gray first, then a faint wash of blue. The sky was unfinished still, but for the first time since the night went black, it was changing. Mara, he said. She sat in the passenger seat, posture calm, hands folded. The light touched her face gently, revealing details Ethan hadn't noticed in a long time: the curve of her cheek, the faint line between her brows. "Yes," she replied. "There's morning," he said. She turned toward the windshield and regarded the light with mild curiosity. "So there is." The road narrowed one last time, then split. Not into two roads, just into two possibilities. The driver's side of the car rolled toward the light, where the asphalt thinned and gave way to something familiar. Cracked pavement, weeds pushing through, a rusted guardrail bent by age rather than intent. The passenger side did not. That side of the road continued forward into the dim glow of the unfinished night, smooth and inviting, stretching on with quiet certainty. The car slowed on its own and came to rest precisely where the division began. Ethan's breath shook. "This is it." Mara nodded. "Yes." "You're staying," he said. She considered the word. "I think I already did." The dawn brightened further, spilling across the driver's seat, warming Ethan's hands on the wheel. He felt heavier now, more solid. The ache in his chest, the one that had dulled and sharpened and dulled again, settled into something manageable. He looked at Mara. "Are you scared?" She thought for a moment. "No." "That scares me," he admitted. She smiled faintly. "It shouldn't." The car door on Ethan's side clicked softly as the locks disengaged. The road was done. Ethan stared ahead at the pale strip of ordinary world waiting just beyond the hood. He could see a road sign in the distance now, rusted but legible. A town name he recognized, though it took him a second longer than it should have. "Do I know that place?" he wondered. The question slid away before it could settle. He frowned, unsettled by the ease of it. "Mara," he said slowly, "why did I want to leave so badly?" She looked at him, eyes gentle. "Does it matter?" He searched himself for the answer, and found only a vague sense of urgency without a cause, a feeling without a story. "I don't know," he said. "That's okay," she replied. "You're still here." The phrase landed differently now. Not desperate, not pleading. Final. Ethan opened the door. Cool morning air washed over him, crisp and grounding. His feet touched asphalt that felt rough and imperfect beneath his shoes. Somewhere nearby, a bird called out, one sharp note, then another. Life resuming. He stood and looked back at the car. Mara remained in the passenger seat, hands folded, watching him with quiet attentiveness. The light didn't touch her side of the vehicle. The night lingered there, pressed close to the glass. "You're not coming," he said, though it was no longer a question. She shook her head. "There's nothing for me out there." "That's not true," he said, sudden anger flaring. "You're—" He stopped. The word he'd meant to say wouldn't come. She waited patiently. Ethan's throat tightened. "You're important to me." She smiled. "I know." "Why?" he asked. She tilted her head, the way she used to when he asked something she couldn't answer easily. "I don't remember," she said. The road behind her shimmered faintly, urging. Ethan stepped back instinctively, away from it. The car door on the passenger side did not open. The choice had already been honored. He closed his door gently, the sound loud in the quiet morning, and took a step back. Mara watched him through the glass as the car began to roll forward, slowly, smoothly, carrying her with it into the thinning dark. "You'll be okay," she said. Ethan nodded, though he wasn't sure why he believed her. The car crossed the invisible threshold, and the night folded in around it, swallowing the road and the woman who remained. Then it was gone. The dawn brightened fully. Ethan stood alone at the roadside, heart pounding, the world stretching out before him in all its ordinary, unremarkable detail. Cars passed in the distance. A breeze rustled the trees. Somewhere, someone laughed. He turned and began to walk. Each step felt heavy but real. Each breath filled his lungs with air that smelled like possibility. As he walked, a strange calm settled over him. The road faded behind him, its memory thinning, details slipping away. The pressure, the bargains, the terrible clarity of choice, all of it dulled, then softened, then blurred. By the time he reached the town limits, he could no longer remember why he'd needed to escape. He remembered driving. He remembered stopping. He remembered leaving. But the why, the thing that had made the night unbearable, was gone. The loss didn't hurt. That was the cruelest part. Ethan paused at the edge of the town, watching the sun rise fully now, painting the sky with colors that felt earned rather than stolen. He was alive. He was free. And he would never be whole. Because survival, he would learn, long after the road had finished with him, is not the same as salvation. And somewhere in a stretch of night that never truly ends, the road waited patiently. Not for him, but for whoever would one day decide that moving forward was worth the cost of everything they were afraid to remember.
Closing chapter.
The road didn't chase them. It didn't threaten them. It simply asked what they were willing to lose to keep moving. Because that's how this kind of horror works, not with monsters, but with choices that feel reasonable at first. A memory here, a feeling there, a piece of yourself you swear you didn't need anyway. And by the time the night finally ends, you don't recognize what made you want to escape in the first place. So here's the question this road leaves behind. If survival costs your identity, did you really make it out? Or did the road just finish rewriting you? If this story stayed with you, don't look away. Like, subscribe, and listen closely. Because some roads don't need you to be lost. They only need you to keep going.